Hi everybody, we'll be starting in just a minute or so. Can everyone see my screen?
I can from my end.
Perfect. So I just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Kathleen Wong and I'm from TGO Consulting, and I'm pleased to have here with me today Brenner Klensman. He is the lead developer for Willoware, which is one of our Dynamics GP partners, and also the Director of Sales and Marketing, Dee Dee Ray. So the Willoware team is here with us today to show you how you can improve user efficiency in almost every aspect of your GP solution. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Your phones are all on mute, so we can avoid any background noise. But if you do have any questions during the presentation, you can put them into the GoToWebinar interface, and we will be reading them at the end of the demo. So for the next 45 minutes, we'll go over a bit about who TGO is and Willoware, go through the demo of the modules, and then answer any questions that you may have. So for those of you who are not familiar with TGO Consulting, we are proven financial systems specialists focused on the office of the CFO. We've actually been around for 27 years, and we deliver guaranteed solutions at a fixed price. So we're always looking for ways to help our clients enhance their systems and improve their bottom line with solutions like Willoware. So with that being said, I'd like to hand it over to Brenner.
Did anything happen?
Yeah, I'm just, sorry, no, I can hear you. I'm going to pass over the rights, but because both of you are under the same name, I'm hoping it's the right one.
Nope.
Okay, so I'm going to
try the other one.
Yeah,
Nope.
there we go.
Is that you? Okay, super.
Yep. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Not yet. There we go.
Okay, so one of the things that we're going to look at today is Logon Monitor. And what Logon Monitor does is there's a couple of modes that it can operate in. Let's see. Dee Dee, this is too small?
Yeah, can you take it up to your entire screen?
How's that?
I lost it.
Kathleen,
There you go. That's good now.
Okay. So Logon Monitor helps maximize your user licenses in GP, and it can also enhance security. There's two modes in which it operates. One is it will log out users once they've reached a specific period of inactivity, so perhaps 15 minutes or an hour or something like that. And then the other mode it operates in is more on a as-needed basis. So that's just to maximize your user count. When somebody logs in, if you're at your maximum number of users, it at that point checks to see if there's somebody who's inactive, and it kicks out the user. I'm introducing this now because this one is actually a little bit hard to demo because it requires leaving GP to sit here and do nothing for a while and wait until it kicks us out. So what I'm hoping is that as we go through this, there will be a point where we're answering some questions, and we'll just let GP sit for a little while. And you'll see it close all by itself. let's see. No, Dee Dee, do you see the GP setup window? The GP PowerPack setup
Yes.
window?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now you can see Logon Monitor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the setup for Logon Monitor. You can turn it off. The when expired method, this is the more security-focused option for Logon Monitor, and it just watches for inactive users and kicks them out once they've hit the allowed inactivity time. And then the during login method, this is the method that helps you maximize your user count. It allows as many people to stay in the system as possible and only kicks people out when they're inactive. It tracks login failures. So that's when you're at your maximum user count. Somebody tries to log in but can't get in because nobody's inactive. Log out failure is somebody who's in the system, they're inactive, but they have maybe a sales transaction open. They've got some document or some activity open that is preventing the system from logging them out. And then forced logouts, that's when the system is able to kick somebody out of the system. And you can also specify a custom message that's displayed to users when their GP application is closed. And hopefully, if we sit around and do nothing for a little while here during this demo, you'll get to see this pop up. What happens is it closes GP, and then it opens up a web browser and displays this message. So we have a number of things to look at in sales transaction entry. A lot of GP PowerPack, this is something that we've been developing for many, many years now. And most of the features that are in GP PowerPack have come from end user requests. These are things that either we see repeatedly in our business. We do a lot of custom work, and so it's maybe something that has been asked for over and over and over. But we also pay close attention to the GP product suggestion pages, and if there's something out there that seems to be pretty popular, we jump on those and add them into GP PowerPack. And a lot of times that gets you new functionality many years before Microsoft adds it into GP, if it ever gets into GP. So it's a really nice suite of enhancements for GP that address a lot of common issues or requests that users have. One of the first things to notice here is the alternate line coloring. This is being provided by a feature in GP PowerPack called color settings. And color settings allows you to change the color of lots of different user interface elements in GP. Here we just change the alternate line color in the scrolling windows. This is something we use internally, and it's nice just because it enhances the readability. When you've got a scrolling window that has multiple lines per row, and you expand it, and there's maybe 3 lines per each row, that can get a little bit difficult to see. So enhancing the color of the lines helps separate the lines from each other. You can also color things like the toolbar at the top of the window. This is nice for delineating a test company versus a live company. Or if you have multiple company databases, it's a subtle way to provide a visual indicator which company database you're in. So as we scroll to a sales invoice here, this box that popped up is it's an alert, and it's part of our alerts module in GP PowerPack. In this case, we attached an alert to the sales invoice. And so this alert will follow this invoice throughout GP, and any place where you use the invoice, this alert will pop up. You can attach alerts to sales documents, customers, items, checks, journal entries, just about anything that exists in GP, and you can also create custom alerts. So if you've got a third-party product, maybe a third-party project module, you could create a project alert. There's a couple different types of alerts. You can have an alert like this that can stay open. So you can use it to provide additional information that pops up for the user so it's easy for them to see. You can also print this information out. And then there's another type of alert that works more like a warning dialog, that when it pops open, you can't click to any other window. It requires that you click OK on the window and close it. So that's an alert that more forces the user to acknowledge that they've seen the alert. Another feature that we have enabled on the sales transaction entry window is making the customer PO number a required field. So you can see that it's red bold, indicating that it's a required field. So if we scroll to another sales transaction that doesn't have customer PO, and we try to save it or print it or get off the sales transaction, you then get a warning that the customer PO number is required, and you have to provide the customer PO to be able to get off of the sales transaction. Now there's a few little enhancements that we have related to customer PO number. One of them is making it required. I should mention at this point that it's not only just a system setting that makes it required for all customers, but it also has the ability to be customer specific. So you can set it up in a way that it's only required for certain customers and not for other customers. Another tweak to the customer PO number that we have enabled here is checking for duplicate customer PO numbers. And so if I change it to a PO number that already exists on another transaction for this customer PO inquiry pops up, and it will show me all of the open and historical documents that have that same purchase order number. And from here, you can select the document and view it in the sales inquiry window. And there's a third enhancement for the PO number that we don't have enabled here, which is to require unique. So in this case, we've changed it to a PO number that exists on another document. But then after showing us that inquiry window, it allows us to continue past and use that duplicate PO number. There's another tweak that you can enable that requires that every PO number is unique and that you don't have any documents, or that you don't have any duplicates. So we've got a sales lookup enhancement for sales transaction entry called Sales Pro. This is another feature that we use internally at Willoware. And we really like this because it pulls a lot of information together in one location. The default view when you do a lookup is it's showing all of the items purchased by this customer. So the view up here on the left is showing customer history. You can also change it to show all items. And in the all items view, it's working just like a regular item number lookup. But when we're in the customer history mode, so these are all the items that the customers purchased before. And these columns in here show some information about what they purchased. We've got the minimum ordered, maximum, average quantity, and it also gives us a min price and a max price. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see previous invoices that contain the selected item. And another view down here in the right-hand corner, you can change this from invoices with selected item to items bought with the selected item. And so we can see then that when they have purchased this white phone cord, they also bought this answering machine. And the bottom left-hand corner of the window gives us availability information. And you can change it to show all sites, show me only sites that have available inventory. or show me quantity on hand. And the difference there between available and quantity on hand is it'll show you sites that have inventory, but it might be allocated. And if it's allocated, maybe this is a really important customer, and we can undo those allocations so that we can fulfill this order. Another feature of this window is you can do wildcard searches of inventory items. So in this case, we're looking for all inventory that contains the word blue. And we've got this blue cordless phone and blue fabric. In this case, we want to add 128 SDRAM, so we'll select that. And another alert pops up. So this is an alert attached to the item 128 SDRAM. And this will follow the item throughout GP. It'll pop up in sales entry and PO entry and inventory transactions. Follow that item around wherever it is used. Another feature we have here is regarding the credit limit. So that credit limit that just popped up, I had to enter the password to get past that credit limit alert. This is a visual indicator up here where the customer ID is red. This is a visual indicator that the customer is over their credit limit. So you know as soon as you start the sales transaction that they're already over their credit limit. You don't have to try to enter an item and get the warning before you know the credit status of this customer. Another feature that we use internally is an email history tracker. Now, I'll show you what we already have in here. So it's been sent a couple of times. And the first time it was sent, there's no comment. The second time it was sent, you can see that this was resent because the customer said they didn't receive the invoice the first time. Where this pops up now is if we click the email button to email the invoice, you get the sales email history window pops open. And as soon as we get done sending the email, and so we can add another comment that we had to send it again because this time it got caught by their spam filter. And if we go back into the document, you can now see that it's been sent 3 times. And we can see the reason why it was resent each time. So there's one more thing in sales transaction entry that we're going to take a look at. And that is the ability to auto-calculate a ship date. And in this case, what it uses, there's a setup window where you can specify, based on the shipping method and the UPS zone, how many shipping days are required. And then that shows up over here. So for courier in UPS zone 1, the requested ship date is 9/25. If this customer were in zone 5, GP would automatically calculate that and say that the requested ship date is 10/12. Now this is all configurable. So this is something that you would set up based on how long it takes you to ship to different locations. And we'll come over here. This is the GP PowerPack setup window. And you can see there's a couple hundred different features in here. And you can enable each one individually. So this is the setup for the requested ship date calculation. In this case, we're linking a shipping method to a UPS zone. And then for each zone, we've defined the number of days that it takes to reach that zone. You can also set up the shipping based on the customer user-defined fields or the zip code. Okay, so that's a whole bunch of stuff for sales transaction entry. It's actually a small sample. There's quite a few more enhancements in the sales entry area. But now we'll move on to a couple of other things. So again, this is a good example of where the color settings add some nice functionality into GP. This is one of these scrolling windows where you have 3 separate lines per line. And when you get data in here, it can be a little bit difficult to see, to keep everything on one line together. And what we're going to look at here is bank deposit filters. This is another one that we use internally, and there's some little filters on here that make it easier to find cash receipts that you're going to include in a deposit. So, for example, one thing that we often have to do is just locate a particular checked deposit. And when there's a whole bunch of them, it's pretty easy just to put in the amount, hit redisplay, and then the deposit entry window finds the documents that have that amount on them. And from there, you mark it, and then you can include another document. And there's nothing for $12, but it's a nice enhancement that makes it quicker to create a bank deposit. And you can see you can also restrict it by a particular type of credit card. You can do a customer or a range of customers. Document date, and then there's different sorting options down here in the bottom too. A quick one over in purchase order entry. This is a really common issue with GP, and that is that the PO entry window allows you to use a non-inventory item, but it doesn't give you any warning that you're using it. So, for example, 128 SD RAM is a real item in GP, and I might accidentally type 128 SD RAM with no space. Normally, GP will just take that. You create the PO, you send it out, you don't notice it, and when it comes time to receive it, that thing's now a non-inventory item, and you can't bring it into inventory. We have a little tweak on the PO entry that makes it work a little bit more like sales transaction entry, so that if you type in an item that doesn't exist, it will prompt you. Say, do you want to use this item number? If you say yes, it's going to open up item maintenance, where you then can add the item number. No clears it out, and continue allows you to continue forward using the non-inventory item. Okay, so the next one on the list is something called mass batch change. And what this is used for is transferring a group of documents from one batch into a different batch. So this is used to support some sort of workflow where once a document reaches a particular status or condition, or somebody has looked at it or somebody needs to look at it, you transfer all those documents into another batch when that status is complete and something else needs to happen to them. You can define, there's a couple of ways of creating a query to identify the documents that you want to transfer from one batch to another. So in this case, we're going to look at sales transactions. This query that we've defined uses a custom query. You see the checkbox over here says uses custom query. We'll come back and look at that one in just a second. You can also use the query builder functionality. So in this case, we've built a query that says, show me all sales transactions where the sales user-defined field called confirmation equals yes. So you build a query by selecting from a list of available fields for the type of transaction that you're working with. So we've got some other of the other user-defined fields down here. So we might say where confirmation is equal to yes, and ordered by is equal to, well, we don't have any values defined. But that's the way you build that. Oh, sorry about that. Helpers are very excited. So you can build a query by adding elements from the query builder. Or we'll circle back to the custom query. So the custom query allows you to build a SQL query joining any tables together that you have. So this is really handy if you're using Extender, or you've got a third-party product, or there's some characteristic or attribute of the sales transactions that isn't contained in the fields available through the query builder. Using the custom query, you can add whatever you want, build the query together, and retrieve the documents that you want to transfer from one batch to another. All right, so now we'll circle back and take a look at this query where the confirmation is equal to yes. Can you guys, Kathleen, can you still see me?
I can still see
I can
your screen.
see you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thanks. Sorry, I lost connection for a second. So it'll show you the list of documents. From here, you can double-click on them and zoom in and take a look. And if these are the documents that we want to include, we click Transfer. And that's that. It moves them all. Now if we open this up, we can see that it moved it into a batch called Ready. Now we're jumping all over the place here. The next one is Select Checks Filters. And what this does is provide a whole bunch of additional ways to create a check batch. So you start with the regular Select Payables Checks window. And then from here we go to Select Checks Filters. And kind of like mass batch change, you create a predefined query and save the query so that you can reuse it every time you need to build a check batch. And you can see this is a pretty simple query. This one we're just going to do a query to find all vouchers where the vendor name contains Sky. And it works like the other window, where we've got a whole bunch of the the payables transaction fields available to select from. And then we select an operator, the vendor name does contain, or begins with, or ends with, or is greater than, and you add it to the selection criteria. one of the unique options in here is you can also select payables documents based on a distribution account. So you might have documents that are all coded for one department. This allows you to pickle those out by using that distribution account and just pay those documents. So we run our query, and you can see it's found several documents for the vendor Sky. We can also manually add documents. So in this case, we'll just pick another one from the list, and you see that adds it. And you can also mark or unmark documents to include or exclude them. Then next step here is we'll click the Apply button, and we'll come over here and build the check batch. When I click the Build Batch window, keep an eye on this part of the window. This is another feature that we use. When you build a check batch in GP, if you have a large number of documents that you're paying, you click Build Batch, and GP just sort of goes off by itself, and you can't really tell what's happening, but it's there thinking. We have a tweak on this window that it'll show us a status message while it's in the process of building the batch. So we don't have a lot of documents here that we're going to include. It'll flash pretty quickly, but you'll see a message up in the top of the window. So if that came through, you should have seen a message that said building batch up in the top. And you can see that the batch total here matches the documents that we selected in the Select Checks Filters window. All right, so the last thing we're going to take a look at are some neat little enhancements on the Smart List window. Again, these are several that we use internally. The first thing you'll notice, Kathleen, can you see that the Smart List window is really large?
Yeah, I can clearly see the fields, and I can read.
Yeah,
I can read everything.
Okay, so the Smart List window, one of the tweaks that we have enabled here allows you to define a default Smart List size. And in this case, we set up a size so the default is a very wide window. It's wide and skinny. What's nice about this is there's a lot of Smart Lists that are pretty wide. And normally what you end up doing then is you click on the Smart List and then you drag the window wider so that you can see everything. By defining a default size with a wide window, it just saves you some clicks. So you can see the effect of this if we go into the Select Size window. We'll change it to small and go back to wide. All right, so another nice feature here is, let's see, let's add a column in here. And we'll just call it test. And, oh, the one I was going to show you I didn't enable. Let me go back and enable this real quickly. Oh, there's the favorite lock. There we go. Okay, so the Smart List favorite lock allows you to lock the favorite. So once you create something that has the columns in it that you want and they're in the order that you want, you can lock it, and you can provide a password. Now, the password is optional. If you provide the password, then obviously the person who locked it and provided the password is going to be the only person who can unlock it. If you don't provide the password, then it's the favorite is locked. If someone comes into the lock-unlock window, they can unlock it without providing the password. What's nice about that, though, is you can lock the favorite so that you can't accidentally change it. It's pretty easy to delete a column or rearrange it or delete the filter or something. By locking it, it just makes sure that you can get in there and use it without accidentally making a change. If you do want to make a change, you just come in, unlock it, make the change, relock it. However, if it's something that's really important and maybe the administrator set it up and everybody else should be able to use it and not make changes, you can provide the password. The final feature we're going to take a look at here allows you to open up to 5 separate smart lists and keep them all open at the same time. And this is really handy if you're working with maybe collections, right? And you've got a smart list that shows a whole bunch of past due invoices, and you can keep another smart list open that shows customer information. You can keep another one open that shows payments. You keep those all open at the same time. So Kathleen, that's everything we had on the list to take a look at. If there are any questions, this might be a good point for me to quit clicking around in GP and see if we can get Logon Monitor to kick us out.
Thank you, Brenner. So I guess while you're clicking around, I'll just let everybody know that if they have any questions, you can type it into the GoToWebinar interface, or if you think of them afterwards, feel free to email us. I won't pull up our contact info just yet. I'll just wait till Brenner is done, but you could email us at info@tgo.ca. So we will stay on here probably for a little bit longer if anybody has any questions. We don't have any questions right now, so we'll just hold off.
Okay. Yeah, it takes about a minute for Logon Monitor to kick us out. The minimum time setting is it ends up being about a minute. It's a hundredth of an hour. And depending on when GP kind of jumps into that timer cycle, it can be about a minute to about a minute and a half or so. It checks for user activity and open documents. So there's a number of things that could keep it from closing the client. If you open up a sales transaction, leave that open, walk away for lunch, or go home for the day, something like that will keep Logon Monitor from closing the application because it doesn't want to corrupt the document. It doesn't know where you are in that document. You might have a partially entered sales line. And if it were to force GP closed at that point, it would corrupt the data because you wouldn't have finished entering it. It also looks for long-running processes like a check building process or payroll process, any of the maintenance routines. There's a lot of things that it checks for to make sure that it can close the client before it attempts to kick a user out.
And while we're waiting for Logon Monitor to throw Brenner off the screen, I'll just mention that all of these modules that Brenner discussed today are part of our GP PowerPack. And if you have questions about it, there are a lot more modules within GP PowerPack than what we were able to show today. But if you have any questions, you can contact TGO or you can look at our website at www.willoware.com. under GP PowerPack. We have a lot of products, but GP PowerPack is a very popular one. And so it has about 30 modules plus, I think, 90 tweaks that come along with the tweaks collection. So if you have any questions about it, please feel free to contact Kathleen or TGO or look at our website, and we'll be happy to help you.
So this is one of those things that takes a lot longer when you're staring at it than when you're not paying attention to it. But I think rather than keeping everybody sitting here, if there are no questions,
we don't have any questions.
Sign off for the afternoon.
Yeah, but before everyone signs off, I just want to thank Brenner and Dee Dee for presenting today, and I want to thank everybody for coming out this afternoon.